Mouse. So welcome back to Faith on Friday. For this case, we have, unfortunately, another child death case. However, this case did get some coverage because the child that is the victim in this case did want to go missing for a while before their body was eventually found. So that also like caused a pretty wide search for her. If that makes sense. And so with that being said, if you knew anybody involved in the case, whether it be the parents, the victim herself, anybody, definitely know down below. And so that being said, it's from Kimberly Royce, and let's get started. So we have to start with the mom. Kimberly Dawn Trenner was born in August of 1988. She would meet Robert Boyers in apparently gym class. And so when she's 15, she wound up giving birth to her daughter named Riley on March 11, 2005. And so, of course, with her being a teen mom and obviously not knowing how parenting works, she would take parenting classes. So then, of course, I assume like she was out of, it did not specify because some people do begin kicked out of the house if you get pregnant like at a young age. So then she starts to live with Robert's mother, Cheryl. In October 2006, apparently Robert and Kimberly would apparently split up. He starts dating this other woman named Catherine, who apparently he also got pregnant. So then also while they split up, I assume she moved out because that would be kind of weird if you're still living there. So I assume she went back to go live with her parents, but then she gets kicked out of the house from them and goes back to go live with Cheryl. So Robert, we don't have details on this, apparently get a domestic violence charge from Kimberly apparently, and it was reduced to disorderly conduct. In May of 2007, she eventually moves to Texas, and on June 1st, she gets married to this guy by the name of Royce Clyde Ziegler III, who apparently is a guy that she apparently met on World of Warcraft, which is an online video game, and apparently it was actually Robert who introduced her to the. So apparently now she's over here married to Royce, who apparently is like the stepdad to Riley, because remember Robert's the biological father. Apparently Royce's mother would like help out with Riley because Riley's still young, she's still wearing diapers, and so apparently one day while she's helping change diapers, she notices like a yellowish, greenish, purplish bruise on Riley. Obviously she's a mother, she knows it's not normal. I don't think you have to be a parent to know that's not normal. So then she goes and confronts Kimberly and Royce about it, and they're like, well, we won't use the belt on her again. So apparently on the fateful day of July 24th, 2007, Royce would apparently had to work, but apparently called off that day, apparently strictly to discipline Riley. And apparently he had belts and apparently cold water disciplined her. Obviously, I assume he was hitting her with a belt, and then whenever she screamed, as anyone would then hit with a belt, he would then dunk her head under cold water. He would then have her hit her head against a wall multiple times. Kimberly, the mother of this child, she would claim that she tried to call 911, but Royce had apparently stopped her. Riley, as you can imagine, she wound up dying from her injuries sadly that day. And then after they believe Riley's dead, they then go to Walmart. And while they're at Walmart, they're getting bleach, gloves, a plastic container, and a shovel. And apparently they pour bleach down her throat to dispose of evidence. So in July 2007, basically Kimberly and Royce, they come up with the idea to make up a fake letter saying that your child has been taken away by the state of Texas, basically like Texas CPS. If anybody asks, because, CPS took them, then that, at least there was CPS. Also, they're not. Obviously, Riley's dead, but they're trying to have a cover story, basically. So then they hide Riley's body in the shed that's in the back of their house for like 2 whole months. They allegedly planned on like burying her at some point. They apparently didn't dump her body at Galveston Bay in September. And then Royce would later say that he wished that he had put holes in the container, that way it could have sunk. Because like I said in the beginning, her body does eventually get found, and had it sunk, her body obviously would not have been found. She probably would still be declared missing to this day. So then on October 27th, someone actually winds up finding the box that contains Riley's body. Of course, she is named Baby Grace because they don't know who this child is at this point. There's a sketch of her that's done that's released in the media because obviously you can't just be releasing pictures of a dead child all over the place because that'd be messed up. Even back then, they had standards back then. And they did a DNA test to confirm there was not Madeline McCain, which essentially is a child from a whole other country who she got infamous because she went missing. And I think any child that was around the age Madeline would have been, immediate DNA test just to make sure, because you never know. So I guess the grandmother saw the sketch on the news and realized, I ain't heard from my grandchild in a while, so I think that's my grandchild Riley. So then Kimberly actually goes to police and reports Riley missing, make herself as the mother look suspicious. So then Royce and Kimberly both arrested on $350,000 bail, and that's each, that's not together, that's $350K each. So then Robert, the biological father, he had to submit a DNA sample, basically confirming this is in fact his kid. Because apparently there was at least 8 other families who there was a description familiar to Baby Grace, and we're trying to make sure that this child gets matched up with the right family, essentially. Royce is apparently interrogated by the police. He basically is throwing Kimberly under the bus, saying it was all her. I had nothing to do with this, and that's her kid. So the police, I imagine they do a search of the house at this point because they have more than enough cause to do a search of the house. They find the list of rules that they expected Riley to follow. Mind you, Riley was like 2 years old, so a little toddler. And apparently the fake CPS letter. They also find apparently a suicide note written by Kimberly and Royce. So I guess they were gonna do a little suicide pact if they got caught. And so Royce said apparently at one point, I guess he was out of jail, he actually had overdosed. He's still alive, sadly, but he was going to do it. So then the DNA test results come in on November 30th. And of course, the body obviously was confirmed to obviously have been Riley. But you need a DNA test just to play it safe. There was a man who apparently had worked on the house in the 2 months that Riley was in the shed. And he said there was like this awful smell that he didn't know what it was. And he believes that smell may have been Riley's decomposing body, which the timeline does add up. And that was during the summer, so it. And the summer in Texas at that, so it's bad. And then, so plot twist, Kimberly was actually pregnant during all this, and she actually wants to give birth to a boy named Sean. It doesn't give like a date of birth on Sean. Sean, as far as I know, he is still with us, I hope, because he was born in like 2008. He would just now be turning an adult next year, which is crazy to think about. He immediately went to the family, because you about to go to jail for the murder of your daughter. And then Cheryl, Riley's paternal grandmother, or Robert's mother, however you want to look at that, she basically contacts Gerber Life Insurance. It's like, hey, there's a life insurance policy on my grandchild. I need you to take Kimberly off the life insurance, so she's technically involved in the death, if you plan on paying that. And apparently there was like a $15,000 life insurance. You know how in Texas they don't be playing when it comes to children's death cases? Yeah, normally you would hear about them getting the death penalty. In this case, apparently the only reason why the death penalty was not pursued in this particular case is because it would be hard to prove that they would be a danger to society in the future, because it seems like the only person they were a threat to is already deceased, meaning Riley. So, of course, Kimberly then has to testify at trial that Royce basically forced me to write the fake CPS letter as a cover story for the murder of my daughter. And so then Kimberly and Royce luckily were both sentenced to life without parole, because that's the closest you can get before getting the death penalty, of course. And the island where apparently Riley's body was found at is apparently named after her. Yeah, like I said, that's a case of Riley Ann Sawyer's, and she essentially was, if I haven't mentioned it before, and if the title wasn't already obvious itself, she essentially was murdered because she was not having proper manners, even though she literally was like 2. So with that being said, if you guys know any other similar childhood death cases I should cover, definitely know. So with that being said, I cover failed females 2 times a week. Subscribe for more failed females. I'll see you guys next one. Bye.